Hey folks, this is Rhykker with a gaming news wrap-up video where we discuss the happenings of the week. This week's topics include a Diablo 4 build being uploaded to the PlayStation Network, a former Diablo developer discussing the downfall of Blizzard, Last Epoch's newest big update, and more. As always, discussion timestamps can be found in the description below, but right before you skip ahead, just a quick reminder to ring that sub notification bell to be alerted to new Saturday episodes and stay up to date with gaming news highlights. Now before we move on, just a quick word from this video's sponsor, Squarespace. I built my website, Rykker.com, using Squarespace, and I was able to do everything myself, quickly and easily, and with zero education in the field, all thanks to how easy Squarespace is to work with. This week, I wanted to update my Diablo 4 page, so watch how easily I add another section to the page with a link to my interview video, and then update the page's table of contents to include a link to this new section, all in about 3 minutes. Most of it was handled with nothing but a few intuitive clicks, and for the more complicated stuff, I was a quick Google search away from an easy answer. I've never had an easier time making a professional-looking website. Basically, if you want to build a website, I recommend Squarespace. And Squarespace is currently offering my viewers 10% off your first purchase with them. Just go to squarespace.com/Rhykker or click the link in the description to sign up and start building your online presence. That's squarespace.com/RHYKKER and use code Rhykker to get started today. In our first story, Wolcen has released its Bloodstorm Part 2 patch, a content update for its Chronicle 1 Blood Trail content update that follows the Chronicle 1 update Bloodstorm patch. In this Wolcen Blood Chronicle Patch Storm update, which is the second scheduled content patch Chronicle Storm Blood update for Wolcen, players get to experience the next Blood Patch Content Chronicle Update Storm for Wolcen Part 2 Second Update Storm Blood Patch Chronicle. The Bloodstorm Part 2 patch brings 2 new environments, new monsters, loot filter improvements, animation improvements, quality of life changes, and tons of bug fixes. Overall, this seems like a solid patch, but not something I'd return to the game for. I'd wait for a bigger content update like Chronicle 2, and hope that by then Wolcen is even more polished. If the devs keep up with solid updates like these, Chronicle 2 may be a great time for players who had a bad first impression to revisit the game. In Last Epoch news, we got a preview of upcoming beta patch 0.8.2, which releases next week, May 24th. With this patch, we can expect massive updates to Last Epoch's endgame system, the Monolith of Fate. New challenging boss encounters, a revamped UI, new skills like Stormcrows, and volatile zombies, which are zombies that run up to enemies and explode on them Serious Sam style, and more. The change to the endgame system is so massive that the devs released a separate blog post about it entirely. Now, most ARPGs have some endgame system that consists of running dungeons over and over. For instance, rifts in Diablo, maps in Path of Exile. For Last Epoch, we have echoes, which you run in the Monolith of Fate, which has been designed or redesigned to give players a, quote, ever-expanding web of choices as you journey through it. Now, each island you're seeing in this image is an echo, each with its own modifier and specific reward. This web of echoes will be randomly generated into a timeline, and completing echoes will fill a progress bar towards unlocking a quest echo, which is a special echo that has some story to it to lend some narrative to what would otherwise be random dungeons in most other games. You'll be able to see which quest echoes you've unlocked and what you need to do to unlock quest echoes that are still locked. Now, echoes can have different objectives, and the devs have added more objectives with this update. For instance, you have patrolling echoes, in which your objective is to kill certain rare enemies. But the catch is that these enemies are not stationary, they're patrolling around the map. Now, you also have arena echoes, in which you have to fight off 12 to 18 waves of enemies. Normally, when you complete an echo, you can see 2 steps ahead to plot your course through your timeline. You can see the next couple echoes. But if you complete a beacon echo, then you can scout much further ahead. Now also, when you complete an echo, you normally cannot return to it. You can't run that same echo again to get the reward again. You can only move forward on your timeline, not back, since, as American country music artist Tracy Lawrence sings, time marches on. But a Vessel of Memory echo will reset the state of all your existing echoes on your web, which will allow you to run them again to claim the rewards again. Then you have Vessel of Chaos Echoes that will re-roll all the echoes you've chosen not to run, possibly turning them into more enticing options. Then you can also run into Shade Echoes, which will trigger a boss fight versus the Shade of Orobis. This is this randomized boss with over 4,000 possible permutations, ensuring that no 2 encounters with him will ever be the same. Well, no 4,000 encounters with him will ever be the same. Defeating this boss will reset your timeline web and add something called Corruption, which is a buff to difficulty and reward. So basically, as you're plotting your way through your web, you have a bunch of different factors to take into account when deciding which echo to run. And I haven't even explained the entire system yet. I think it's a really cool idea. I like the thought of there being some greater purpose to just running rifts over and over and over, having more decisions to make, more variety, and a greater sense of progression and context. Why am I doing these? Am I building towards something? I think all this is great. And when I looked at the image, visually, it instantly reminded me of Path of Exile's Synthesis League, which was a league mechanic that I loved in theory. In practice, it was not one of the game's more successful leagues, but it looks like Last Epoch's idea avoids the problems that Synthesis ran into. I look forward to trying out the new Monolith of Fate. Now, as we mentioned last week, Last Epoch's game director Judd Cobbler conducted an Ask Me Anything this week. I'll link to that for those who want to read the full thing, but here are a couple of highlights. When asked about how trading will work in Last Epoch, Judd said, quote, "Some design goals we have for trading are 1. Don't ruin the chase. We want people to be excited about going into the world, killing monsters, and having the chance to get great upgrades. 2. Bring people into the same space so it feels like a living, breathing world. 3. Don't build a system where people feel like they need to go outside of the game to be efficient." We'll have more details later. These are all goals that I can get behind, and I look forward to seeing how they execute on them. Now, when asked about monetization, Judd said, quote, "Current plans are to keep the pay-to-play box model that we have now, while also introducing cosmetics. If this goes as planned, this should allow us to pay for server costs plus future content releases. There will never be any pay-to-win or pay-for-convenience features. The box sale price will allow us to provide all the convenience features we can create and provide with the base game. We have some really cool cosmetics in the works that I'm excited to share in the near future." Now, this sounds like a completely fair business model to me. You buy the game, then if you want to, you can choose to spend money on cosmetics. This allows the devs to keep updating the game consistently, delivering content that will keep you playing, instead of forcing the devs to go off and work on a sequel in order to keep making money. We also learned in the AMA that the devs currently plan to have seasons that last 4 to 5 months, but that they'll of course see how that plays out with the community. Now, currently we see in Diablo and Path of Exile, after years of iterating, that roughly 3 months has been the sweet spot for both of these games. So I do wonder why the devs of Last Epoch feel that they can push it to 4 to 5 months. On to some other Ask Me Anything news. Diablo alum Peter Hu conducted an Ask Me Anything this week as well. Who, you may ask? Yes.
You know the guy's names on the baseball team? Yes. Well, go ahead. Who's on first?
Yes.
I mean the guy's name.
Who?
The guy playing first.
Who?
The guy playing first base.
Who?
The guy on first base.
Peter Hu was creative director on Marvel Heroes. He was one of the founders of Runic Games, working on Torchlight 1, Torchlight 2. He was one of the founders of Flagship Studios, working on Hellgate London. And he was a programmer, designer, and lead at Blizzard North, working on Diablo 2 and Lord of Destruction. He even did some of the initial work on the original version of Diablo 3. Currently, he's the founder of Rhino Games, working on free-to-play collectible card game Mythgard. During the Ask Me Anything, Hu shared some interesting insights on the dissolution of Blizzard North, the failure of Hellgate London, and more. Now, for those who may not know, Hellgate London was a dark science fantasy ARPG that can be played from a first or third person perspective, and it was developed by a number of former Diablo developers, including Bill Roper, David Brevik, Eric Schaefer, Tyler Thompson, and Phil Schenk. The game, unfortunately, was met with mixed to average reviews, and was a financial failure. So Hu was asked if he felt that another 6 months of development time would have changed things, or if the game's subscription model would have always prevented it from becoming a massive hit. who said, quote, "We were trying to shift it to free-to-play at the end, which isn't any better. But yeah, the game needed about a year plus more development, at least. Unfortunately, the publishers refused to give us our last tranche of funding, and we had to push it out way too early. The submodel was just an attempt to get some funds in so we could finish the development. It was never a fully formed idea and wasn't implemented well either. We would have preferred for the game to be just the box price for entry and nothing else, but like I said, we ran out of money to finish and were left scrambling. Our two primary funders were Namco America and Hambitsoft. Both of them hit really rough patches during our development, with Namco deciding to totally shut down Namco America due to, from what I heard, corporate malfeasance on the part of the management, and Hambitsoft undergoing a hostile takeover. It pretty much blew all our plans for the game out of the water. We had to scramble to get EA to publish the game at the last minute. For once, EA weren't the bad guys in the story. Later in the AMA, who offered this thought on monetization of ARPGs. Quote, "Personally, I think the free-to-play model doesn't really suit ARPGs on the whole. Different genres of games have different business mechanics. It's kind of like the Diablo 3 auction house, which I spent a huge amount of time trying to convince the team was a bad idea. ARPGs are driven by the loot economy, and I think the free-to-play model impacts that in a negative way to greater or lesser extent." When asked if he has any thoughts on the Diablo 2 remaster, Who said, quote, "I actually offered to help them with it several months back, but haven't gotten a reply yet." As a follow-up question, he was asked if there are any bad feelings between current Blizzard and Blizzard North from back in the days. He said, quote, "It's so long past that I don't think people think about it much. For the most part, I don't think there was that much hard feelings in the actual teams. But in a way, there was always a rivalry. People formed opinions about one another. Overall, they were a mixed bag of positive and negative, kind of like what happens with people who are friends and family members. I honestly don't think there are any truly totally negative feelings that have lasted all this time. Personally, I kinda always like everyone. The only person in either organization that I really didn't like was the CLO, the Chief Legal Officer at Blizzard. Everyone else was pretty darn cool." Who was then asked to shed some light on the mass exodus of staff from Blizzard North. For those who need a quick history lesson, after Lord of Destruction was released and while Blizzard North was working on Diablo 3, at some point many significant figures left Blizzard North, which was eventually followed by Blizzard North being shut down entirely and Blizzard itself taking over Diablo 3. Now, rumors have always circulated that drama between Blizzard North and Blizzard's parent company at the time, Vivendi, was the root cause of the exodus. Here's what Who had to say. Quote, "Yeah, that's quite a story. So, originally the top three at Blizzard North, David Brevik, Eric, and Max Schaefer, along with the top guys at Blizzard, Mike Morhaime, Alan Adham et al., heard that Vivendi was in the middle of selling Blizzard. All without even bothering to tell any of the guys at Blizzard. They tried to get in contact with people at Vivendi doing the sale, to no success. So they all put in their resignations together to try to get someone to notice them, something they'd done and that had worked in the past. Vivendi accepted the resignations for the Blizzard North founders. I don't know what entered into that decision. Maybe there were no Diablo products imminently shipping, whereas World of Warcraft had just shipped, or was about to ship, I forget which. So the next day, Dave, Max, and Eric call a company meeting and tell us they'd been let go. I remember telling them immediately after the meeting that no matter what they did after, count me in. Anyway, the management staff from Irvine came in to try to figure out how to put the pieces back together. We were working on two projects at the time, Diablo 3 and codename Starblow. I believe they were intending to just get everything working again as expediently as possible. However, in the process of interviewing everyone and taking stock, they discovered that there was major rancor between two factions of the company. There were some people that absolutely despised each other, which is why the studio had started to work on two projects in the first place. In the interest of getting things back on track without any of the previous senior management, I believe they decided to cut basically one of the teams in order to leave a studio without the dysfunction that probably would have prevented it from prospering, given what had happened. That resulted in nearly half the people being asked to leave, the Diablo 3 team at the time. I think it was an impossible decision, and no matter what they did, Blizzard North was doomed without its founders and leaders. After about a year, that proved out, and they shut down the studio and asked the remaining people to go to Irvine. A handful of people went. Who was also asked for his thoughts on Blizzard's current direction and where it went wrong. He said, quote, "When Blizzard was young, the people in charge were passionate about playing games. They were making the games they wanted to play, not the games they thought would make the most money. When it became a big business and the suits came in that wanted to optimize the business instead of the game, is when it all went downhill. The developers still love games, but their voice is much smaller now, and often superseded by business concerns. I remember when we were trying to argue that a Diablo on the Game Boy was going to be a hit. We built a prototype and everything, and it was shut down because it wasn't going to make enough money. Mind you, it was projected to make hundreds of millions, but it wasn't enough. Those are some great insights right there. Over the years, we've heard a number of the former Diablo developers speak about different topics, each kind of lending a piece of the puzzle, and I hadn't heard anything from Peter Hu before, so adding his insights to the compilation we've been building really helps to paint the picture. And that takes us into Diablo news. It seems that a Diablo 4 build has been discovered on the PlayStation Network. On May 17th, a distribution kit for an unknown Activision Blizzard game was discovered on the PlayStation Network, weighing in at almost 44 gigs and rated 17+. Twitter user Justin X Rubin did some digging, got access to the list of distribution assets, downloaded them, and found within a file with the Diablo 4 logo on it, sealing the deal. Now, it should be specified that this is not on the PlayStation Store. This is the PlayStation Network. It's possible that for Blizzard to disseminate this Diablo 4 build to either work from home employees or testers, maybe they're doing some kind of external testing, they need for some reason to go through the PlayStation Network. This is not a sign that any kind of public beta is coming soon, be it open or under limited access. But this is a sign that testing is now moving from just PC to now PlayStation as well. Now, I spoke with someone who has worked in the AAA gaming industry for the last several years to try to gain some insight on this, and their experience is that a multi-platform game would only begin testing on a platform other than PC at a later phase of development. For instance, if a game took 5 years to make, it would be in the last year and a half, 2 years, that testing would begin on console. And for what it's worth, they also believe that it would be unnecessary to upload a build to the PlayStation Network for most testing purposes, since devs would have their own internal tools for that. So, in theory, testing on PlayStation could have begun even sooner than now. As a reminder, Diablo 4 is definitely not releasing this year. At best, we can hope for a late 2022 release, but 2023 seems more likely. The next quarterly update for Diablo 4 is expected to come out around the end of June. And as a late-breaking addition here, Twitter user Lord Soth dug even deeper to find this internal reference, calling this build a take-home alpha. Note that this does not, in fact, change any of our deductions here. Blizzard has used the term publicly, take-home alpha, before to refer to alphas that its employees will take home. We saw a reference for World of Warcraft's Warlords of Draenor, as well as Heroes of the Storm. And in some other Diablo news, or really non-news, rumors of a Diablo movie have emerged. I have to talk about this because people are going to keep asking, hey, did you hear about this? Why aren't you talking about this? So we're talking about this. A writer for that hashtag show claims to have an exclusive inside scoop and says that a live-action CGI film is in development. Well, which one is it? Is it live action or is it CGI? Because a live action film with CGI in it is just called a live action film. I mean, we know you're not actually filming in hell. He goes on to say that the film was set to begin filming this year, but with the pandemic, things got pushed. Now, the film allegedly has a first draft that is currently undergoing a rewrite. He also says that while he has no plot details to share, it's seeming like Blizzard is looking to release the film through its own distribution methods. They're looking to distribute the film on their own Battle.net launcher and will also put the film on standard VOD channels. However, since they're falling out with Netflix, I've heard that Blizzard is uninterested in working with Netflix again. Expect an official announcement in the next year or so as Blizzard works to finalize talks with the director and begin the casting process. I've been told BlizzCon is a likely place for the announcement. Now, whenever someone comes out with a scoop or insider information that cannot be externally verified, it all comes down to trusting the source. In this case, how trustworthy is the source? Does the source have a reputation for getting things right, like Jason Schreier, who's known to have inside connections, inside scoops, things that he has leaked to the public have panned out to be true time and time again? Or is the source known for getting things wrong? They make predictions and those predictions end up being proven false. Well, in this case, it seems the writer doesn't have a long-standing reputation, but lately he's been making a lot of grand claims about exclusive leaks. Mostly things that won't be confirmed true or false for at least a year, which affords plenty of plausible deniability. So, is it possible that this is a legit leak? Yeah, it's possible, but we can't verify the legitimacy of the source. They've not given us anything really solid to crunch on that we can point to as being true or false. The whole Netflix thing, the falling out with Blizzard, that stuff has been talked about. I've talked about that multiple times in multiple videos. There's no smoking gun here, and overall the website he writes for has a lot to gain with all these exclusive leaks, all these exclusive scoops that are going to drive a lot of traffic to the site. So just to clarify, I don't mean to delegitimize him. Again, he could be totally legit. I would truly love for this rumor to be true, but I find it difficult to believe after the pretty poor box office reception of the Warcraft movie, which really only made a profit because of China, that Blizzard has any interest in another live-action venture. And that Activision, that has been pretty much letting go of all staff other than game developers and is hiring almost exclusively game developers in order to release more games, since they are, after all, a game company that makes money by releasing games, that Activision would greenlight spending money on a live-action movie for one of Blizzard's secondary franchises. Again, though, I want this to be true. I do want a Diablo movie. I do want a Diablo series. I will be very happy if I turn out to be wrong about this. In other Diablo news, Wowhead has been data mining Diablo 2 Resurrected 3D models, and I wanted to highlight the amazing detail on the Necromancer's golems. We should note that in-game, the fire golem will have fire effects on him. They're not pictured here because it's a different particle renderer at play. But this is still quite a departure from the original fire golem, which was made only of fire with no physical body, and was basically translucent. So what do you folks think? Do you like this interpretation of the fire golem? And as for that iron golem, man, does his ball hang low. And that's gonna wrap up this week's video. But do be sure to have checked out last week's video in which we discussed some of the Diablo 2 Resurrected character models. Thanks for watching. Special thanks to my Twitch, Patreon, and YouTube supporters for making these videos possible. If you like what you see on this channel and want to support the creation of more content, you can consider pledging on YouTube or Patreon and unlocking behind-the-scenes content, monthly virtual hangouts, and more. If you enjoyed this video, please share it. Check out these other videos, and subscribe to join Rhykker's Raiders for more gaming content.